So everything going all right on your side?
Yeah, yeah, chugging along.
Yep. That's good. That's good. I do want to. I don't actually. I haven't been like going on social media that much the last few weeks. Just because I've been like head down, super focused on a few things I've been working on. But I just went on to send you the link for this, and I just saw that Replit is now at 150 million ARR of revenue.
Yeah.
They're 50 times their revenue in 12 months.
Well, I mean, they get bought out by Microsoft, or they're
No
like,
partnership with Microsoft partnership. It's not, they haven't been bought out.
oh, okay.
It was some sort of partnership. It was like, um, I think Microsoft do these partnerships because they want the cloud. They want the hosting.
Hmm.
And so they'll push the products if they host on their things. I think that's sort of the strategy.
Well, I would
But
assume they also want the data, the
yeah,
the
yeah,
user data. When I saw when OpenAI was looking to buy Windsurf, they're saying that it wasn't that they couldn't build something similar. It was the fact that Windsurf had all this incredible user data that would be really valuable in terms of what were people building, where were they running into trouble, how were they debugging, and
yeah,
they were saying that it was that data that was really the huge value in the deal. So I wonder if that partnership with Replit is kind of along those same lines.
yeah. I'm sure they like this. The space is just booming, right? Like absolutely booming, and it's real revenue as well. I mean, I just uh I try not to get like too cynical, but the amount, remember when this was all emerging and the amount of pushback there was like that this is not going to be a thing. And I was dead set. This is
Yeah.
going to be huge. Like this is going to be absolutely huge. And it's just playing out like that. It's just playing out that way. I mean, yeah, I haven't benefited at all from having the right view on that. But in other than like a change of like sort of career, basically, a change in like what I'm doing. Oh, look, maybe it will pay off. Maybe it will pay off eventually. But it's going to be such a big thing. It's funny because I'm seeing those numbers. I just saw those numbers, and I was watching YouTube last night, and a CNBC thing came out that like all the software stocks are down like 40% year on year. Like they're all getting crushed, like Salesforce, HubSpot, Monday.com, like all these companies. I also saw a chart that Shopify's revenue growth has fallen off as well. I don't know if its revenue's gone down
Did,
or anything,
did you
but
see
like
the Gardner chart? I mean, Gardner just fell off a
Gartner's
cliff.
off. Yeah. It's just all AI, isn't it? It's just like all AI is just
Yeah.
it's what we've always known. Like we knew this like pretty early on, didn't we? But when you add in this like intelligence layer, like so much of historic business is just um disrupted, just disrupted, like why do you need a Gartner report when you can run I mean, I would just go run a deep research query and I'd probably get a better
That's it.
report.
I just did that today. It was funny that I wanted to I had a particular question about Python packages and MCP servers for a use that I'd never used before.
Yeah.
And I just punched into the Google Deep Research, and it just went out and put together like a beautiful report for me with
Mm.
all the pros and cons, and this package and this server will work well together, and
Yeah.
it was fantastic.
Yeah. What does that do to the value of human intelligence or human capital, Like, I mean, you're crazy not to think it disrupts it in some way. Like, it absolutely does. Like, um, but I think I don't think everyone's going to default to AI for everything, but it definitely is totally disruptive to just so many businesses.
Well, I mean, how much did you follow the GPT-5 release? Because I thought there were so many fascinating elements of that.
Yeah, no, honestly, I've used it. I've used it a little bit. I mean, it's default on ChatGPT now, so every time you go there, you're using it. Um, but I haven't been on social media that much, so I really haven't been like I haven't seen this sort of story unfold around it. But what's your take? I mean, have you spent a bit of time on it?
Yeah, I have, and I I think they just botched it in so many different ways. I mean, it's one of the. I mean, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be something that people study in business school for years now because I think it was so badly done, and it just it made so many people mad. And maybe it's kind of the the echo chamber of the the internet and social media, but it
Mm.
was so sloppy. First of all, it was just incredibly sloppy. These charts that made no sense, numbers that
Ah,
didn't add up, you know,
right.
graphics that said, oh, hallucinations are down with hallucinations right in the middle of the charts. I mean, it was just, I've literally never seen anything like it.
Wow.
You know,
I mean,
that it was
everyone does ha particularly on LinkedIn. I mean, everyone hammers OpenAI. Like it's just like the most clickbaity thing. So everyone loves hammering them. But like I so I mean, there's just a caveat there. But yeah, like obviously something's gone awry there. Hey, what has Sam Altman been saying? Has he been trying to cover it?
I mean, he hasn't been trying to cover it as much as just, I mean, he has been responding to it, and but there's kind of no excuse for it. I mean, it's kind of did anybody look at these, at these charts before they present
Mm,
them? That was one thing, and the other thing was that I found much more interesting was, GPT-5 is unquestionably a smarter model than GPT-4o, and yet people really backlashed about particularly the loss of 4o. And
mm,
I found that fascinating because models definitely do have personalities. I mean, it's unquestionable that
mm,
4o and 5 give you a different experience. Even though 5 is smarter, one of the things that I don't know if you saw my post yesterday, but Nate Jones, who is one of my favorite, guys on YouTube.
He comes up for me now. He comes up on my YouTube feed because I
Yeah,
watch
he
it.
did. He did just a brilliant exposition of how OpenAI has changed the nature of the system prompt in GPT-5 versus GPT-4o, and even some of the previous versions. And it's pretty interesting that there's this guy named Pliny the Liberator who cracks every AI model like the day it comes out and releases the system prompt on his GitHub. And the
Mm,
really interesting thing is what it showed is that GPT-4o is very chatty. Like it's meant to be an interactive experience.
mm,
GPT-5 is totally different in that it's intended to be agentic and it's intended to be what he called the bias to ship, so that it's not going to ask you a lot of questions. At most, it'll ask you like one question and then it'll give you an answer. And because of that, you have to really structure your prompt in this very kind of
mm,
rigid way in order to get an optimal response. And so I think people didn't realize that. And the experience is much diminished if you're used to a an interactive, chatty, exchange, which GPT-5
mm,
does not really want to have. I mean, even if you use GPT-3, I remember it was almost annoying in the sense when you put in a difficult problem, it would just ask you question after question after question. And
mm,
um and GPT-5, with this bias to ship is just kind of intended to get an answer out quickly. And the thing that Nate said that I thought was fascinating was that he speculates the reason they're doing this is because it's actually something you've said for months, which is that they are looking to build a full office suite around GPT-5. And
mm,
so, with with an email client, with an editor, which they've already got in the canvas, with
mhm,
all these connectors. And so to have it be that you can ask it get a smart answer and get it to start using tools right away. And I
Mm.
thought that was a fascinating, fascinating thing. But it was interesting in the sense they took away the model picker and
Hmm.
people just lost their minds, you know.
Which is so ironic because people used to complain about it all the time on social media about how confusing it was. So,
Yeah. I mean, and I kind of look at Anthropic, and Anthropic to me has done it right, which is they've been clear about not taking away models when they add things, but the model picker they use is not confusing. It's like Sonnet, Opus, and Haiku. Yeah, and you can pick, and if you really want to go back to like, Sonnet 3.5, you can do it.
mm,
Um, but it's a really simple, thing. And I kind of looked at the two approaches, and OpenAI just seemed so kind of amateurish, in so many
mm,
ways. And it looked to me like they had done like no product testing with, kind of, user testing. And maybe they
mm,
have, but, kind of given what they had promised. And this whole talk about, GPT-5 was going to be AGI, and it's
mm.
not. I mean, it isn't even close.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the whole thing just really seemed kind of a disaster. And maybe, as we get
Mm,
further out from it, it won't. But and,
mm,
and the other thing that I think is interesting is one thing I heard was that over 50% of people who subscribe to the Plus package, the $20 a month package, never moved out of 4.0. Like they never dropped down and chose another model. And so for them, the model picker and kind of the introduction of reasoning might be a big plus. They
mm,
might see, wow, this is a lot smarter if you let it reason. But the whole thing
mm,
just kind of just seemed like a train wreck. And I couldn't
mm.
imagine either Anthropic or Google botching a launch like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like it. Um, they're so big now, OpenAI though, that it isn't going to be impossible to keep everyone happy. And also, social media is all about um, creating, in a lot of cases, to get engagement, creating a big deal out of nothing, that. So certainly, I just think they're sort of caught in a tough position. They're so big, they can't keep everyone happy. But there is no doubt in my mind that they are building something bigger here, right? Like they're going to build the agentic office where
Mm,
if you look at how Microsoft and Google used email as a way to get into people's lives and businesses, right? That is just
yeah,
such a core part of an offering if you really want to be sticky. And so I would not be surprised in the next 6 to 12 months that they bring out an email client and some sort of like Teams type client
totally agree.
to to capture people more. And then they've already said that they are going to try and create like an agent, like a personal agent. And I guess that's what Microsoft is trying to do with Copilot. It's what Google's trying to do with Gemini. They're all sort of moving in that direction. Um, I believe that's not the only game in town, though. That is the big game. That is a big game, and yes, they're right to go after that. But I actually wrote a post the other day because I had some thoughts. I do not. I am starting to feel that um, not every piece of technology is going to be a text box that you input. Like a lot is. Like I think it's going to be very core to a lot of pieces of software, but not every piece of software is going to be like this. I actually think it's to your detriment if you go in this direction like super quickly. Like if you build for that. Um, I wrote a little bit of a post around that because I've been building some stuff and I just I just don't um feel like going to a chat interface for every little interaction in the app is actually a good idea. Like people like visual things, right? Like so um yeah. I've had a few other insights around like developing and stuff lately, but that's I don't know, like GPT-5 seems fine to me. It seems very, very good. That's that I've been impressed. I mean, I don't mind not having to select the model anymore personally. Uh, I never really loved 4.0 anyway. Like I thought it was like too probably too chatty or too casual or
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's just hard to what does it tell you about personal preference? Like everyone's getting preferences in terms of like who they want to communicate, these models they want to communicate to.
Yeah.
Like it tells you a little bit about the future, I think. That's a sign for the future. Like everyone's going to want to have their own, not everyone's going to want to talk to one type of model or like have this interaction with one type of personality.
Well, I saw your post today about Open Router, and you know, I think that's absolutely right. I've been saying for 6 months to a year that, kind of you're ultimately going to have a team of models that you work with.
Mm,
And, for me, it's like, there's not one company, as much as I love like Gemini 2.5 Pro, it's
yeah.
not the be all end all, and there's a lot of things I don't use it for that I'll use
Mm,
Claude Sonnet and Claude Opus for coding. I'll use some of the like O3 and O4 Mini for tool calling.
yep.
I've heard that by the end of the month, DeepSeek R2 is going to be out. I love DeepSeek R1. That was for a long time. That was my go-to, kind of big hitter model. And
Mm,
so I kind of feel like, you know, it was in a sense the blow up over GPT-5 kind of validated a lot of my feelings, which is that models have different characteristics and feel to them, and people become attached to those characteristics. And I think that's good. That it's a sign that, as you say, that it's not a one size fits all.
mm. Yeah, it's like we both truly feel this that you shouldn't get locked into any one model or any one supplier. But on
Yeah.
the flip side, all of these big tech companies, that's what they want you to do. They want you to be completely locked in, right? And I don't know, maybe the vibe coding scene is showing that maybe the market doesn't actually want that. They don't want it. Like that's probably why vibe coding, you know, is so successful right now because people are more often than not people are realizing this. That centralization is just probably not what you want here. Like you
Yeah.
want versatility. Like if a Chinese model comes in and is 20 times cheaper and you're running like agentic coding or agentic analysis, like, and you want to run it all day, every day. Well, why pay 20 times more? You know, like this is sort of the game that's going to play out. I think, like it kind of already is, but staying flexible, I think, is just going to be so key here. That opens up a lot of opportunities actually from the application layer. I think, like, um, yeah, I think a lot more opportunities will emerge to enable individuals and businesses to be selective over like how they use things.
And I totally agree. And that, I've spent a lot of effort keeping my options open and avoiding being, kind of pinned into any one thing. And, it's from
Yeah.
the client choice and the use of Open Router and, kind of a whole series of, more flexible tools that don't lock me in. And I mean, it's really interesting too, because I think there's going to be there there's still a lot of cards left to show. That Google has at least two big models they have not released. Um, that R2 is still to drop, and that's been rumored, for a long time to have a lot of innovation. And
Mm,
as you said, the cost aspect, but also some of the smarts built into that and the way they've trained it. And there are a couple of other models that are showing, at least in some of the preliminary tests, the ability to really do complex thinking that is not based on the extent of the training data.
mm,
Some of these zero shot models and
Mm.
These others that are, way outscoring even the best of the reinforcement learning models. I think there's going to be just some big stuff still on the horizon that is going to, shape this. That, it's not like GPT-5 came out and everybody said, okay, we're left scratching our head for, where we're going to get the next big innovation. I mean, I think it did show that, just sheer scaling is pretty much done.
Yeah.
Because I remember that, 14 months ago, that whale slide that Microsoft had. Do you remember when they were
Yeah.
showing like the
Yeah.
um the shark, the orca, and the whale, and it looked like GPT-5 was the whale, and it was just gonna dwarf the other ones. And I mean, it's better, but it's not much better. It's definitely an incremental change. And
Yeah.
so I think the scaling is largely, those gains have been wrung out, it seems. But I think there's
Well,
still a lot of
we
room.
I remember we said something like this along the lines of this sort of maybe 3 months ago, is that improving models at this stage just doesn't feel like it was going to make that much of a difference. But the
Yeah,
token window, making that bigger would. And I think there has been a little bit of improvement on there. Like I saw an announcement, I think on my email from Anthropic that they increased it to 1 million
they're up to a
tokens.
million. Yep.
So that's 4 times what it was before. So that's pretty significant, actually.
Very significant. I mean, I find that working in Gemini is just much easier because, or at least it was, as good as
Mm,
Claude was for coding, I just kept bumping into that context window ceiling. And particularly because I was running with big custom instructions and big data
mm,
sets, and I would eat that. Sometimes it would be three or four questions, and I'd eat the entire context window up. And so, yeah, I think that's a big thing. And the other thing is now that all three of the big ones have memory.
mm.
And so I
Yep.
think, kind of having big context windows and easy to manage memory is at least as good as having, a smarter model.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, the using the multi models that I did in one of my posts is so I'm managing these models, but I'm also I'm managing their token, like the amount of tokens I can use. So in my on my screen, so this is the last couple of weeks when I've been like really heads down doing a lot of development. I've got three consoles open. I've got Opus in one. I've got Gemini 2.5 Pro in another, and I've got Sonnet in another. 2.5 Pro and Sonnet I can pretty much use unlimited. So I use them for any research tasks. Like anytime I need to get remind because my two main apps that I'm working on quite like all out at the moment uh, are very complex now. Like they're huge. They're absolutely massive. And they've got so much logic. Databases are huge, and so I have to remind myself when I'm working on features like how these things work, like the exact flow, the exact files we're using, and things like that. So I'm constantly doing research now before I go and make any changes. And so I'm just using these ones because I do not want to eat up any of my Opus credits because they run out so fast now. Like Anthropic are loop, but they are unable to supply the amount of tokens that people need. There's just no doubt they just cut me off so quickly.
Are you running on a Max subscription
Yep,
for
Max. Yep,
the
yep.
interesting thing is that what I found in the last couple of days is my Opus 4.1 tokens are lasting much longer.
Right.
Um,
I usually have three open, so I've got three going at once. So that's probably why they go out so quick for me. Like because I'm researching and then I come up with a plan and then I put that plan into Opus, get that to done, and then I'm going on to the next thing. And then I sort of like redo that all the time. And Opus is the best coder by far. It's way better than
mhm.
Sonnet, in my opinion. Sonnet can still do it. I have like if I run out of credits, I obviously have to use it. But it's I don't know. It's just so fascinating. I'm just like sitting at I guess my point here is that it's just so fascinating. I'm just sitting here talking into my microphone, like with my transcription tool, talking into these different things, like literally like talking to different people to do different things. It's so weird. It's so weird, but so crazy. Like, I mean, I'm being productive. I'm building crazy stuff that I just never thought I could build. Um, and yeah, hopefully the payoff's there. Like I also was running just think about like I'm on the max plan, right? So I'm like 200 US a month. Um, I believe the ROI on that is just insane. It's absolutely insane.
I
Like
agree.
I've only paid one subscription so far, right? Because it's so new. Like so I've probably got my next month coming up. But I've paid 200 US, and the amount of work that I have been able to get through in 6 or 7 weeks is beyond crazy. Beyond crazy. Like I just never would have thought. Like this is why those tech stocks are all going down, right? Because the productivity of like building new things is like the way how the speed you can do it by yourself, pretty much, is crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Well, it's interesting because when OpenAI when they dropped five and I saw there wasn't anything that I thought was great in that, I downgraded my $200 a month subscription because I just don't use the OpenAI models that much.
Yeah.
And I upgraded. I was already on the Claude Max program, and then what I did is I upgraded to the Gemini Ultra.
Okay.
And I don't know anybody else who's done that, but it's actually right now it's a good deal because they give you a 3 month sharp discount. And the other thing is if you run YouTube Premium, which I watch so much YouTube now for AI and
Yep.
tech stuff that I can't watch it with commercials. So if you get a Google Ultra subscription, they give you the YouTube Premium for free. So that's like a
Wow,
$20.
they're bundling. They're bundling now.
They're bundling, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's become quite an impressive package. And the thing that's really neat with it is for the really difficult stuff, when you run Gemini with the deep think, it'll sometimes think for 20 to 25 minutes. And I mean that thing will crack anything, that I've thrown at it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's so interesting you say that. I want to also say I've been canceling a lot of subscriptions lately. A lot. So it was all quite new at the start of the year, and I just ramped every subscription up, just to stay current and see the latest stuff. And mainly, yes, I've gotten rid of a lot because I just don't need it. Like, and a lot of the other, like a lot of the main ones like OpenAI and Gemini and Anthropic, they sort of cover a lot of like bases now. Like,
they
they
do.
they really have everything. So it's tough out there. It's tough out there for businesses, but and for startups and stuff. But yeah, if you're not sort of using it, then it's not really worth paying, is it? But I was feeling the
I've
same
run
way
into the
about,
same thing. I mean, at one point I had 27 subscriptions.
yeah,
And I've weeded that down dramatically because things like like Lovable, which I know you're a big fan of.
yeah,
Um, and I think it's a very good platform. But I look at now the Google Ultra and the Opal program that they've got
mhm,
for kind of building these mini apps and things like is
yep,
really good.
yep,
Yeah, is it as good as Lovable? Probably not, but it's bundled in, it's bundled right into the subscription. I think it's quite good. Um,
yep, yep. This is what they're going to do. They're going to start bundling all these things together. The competition is fierce out there. But like honestly, as we've said many times, there is going to be so many winners. The markets are huge here. They're so big. I mean, it's already proving out to be the case. Replit, which I think is an inferior platform to Lovable, I believe personally, um, is got more revenue than Lovable right now, from what I can see. Lovable was the quickest to 100 million ARR, I think they were saying, which is just crazy growth, absolutely crazy. Um, but they've raised they'll be fine. They've raised $200 million, so they've got a lot of money to continue to grow. But then, like honestly, like I spent all my time in Claude Code now, so I haven't been in Lovable for like a month, but I'm only
yeah,
paying $20, so like I'll keep it. I still think it's a great place to start. I truly do. I think it's the best place to start still. If I was to start something new tomorrow, I would certainly start it in Lovable because it just sets up a lot of the core code files, makes the connection to Supabase, sets you up in GitHub, just does all the stuff like really, really simply. But then I would be jumping to Claude Code pretty quickly because of the
yeah.
multi agent orchestration thing that you can do. So, um, So it's worth it just for that. If I wanted to do something new, but I've been very like ultra focused lately. So I've been just sitting in Claude Code all day.
You know what I love in Claude Code, and the same thing is in Rue Code now, is
Mm.
the planning mode that, you know, where it'll
Mm.
break down and like and put together a to-do list, and then,
Yes.
you know, as
Yeah.
you work through, it'll check off. I
Yep.
absolutely love that. You know, it's
Yeah.
almost like you know, the framework I use for analysis planning, and
Well,
you
that's
can
the
actually.
agentic flow. That's the agentic flow that is coming, right? It's like imagine that agentic flow in like creating a PowerPoint presentation, or well, I guess that's what like OpenAI is trying to do, right?
I want to ask you about that because, you know, one of the things I've started to need to do is more PowerPoints, you know, for clients and presentations. And
Mm.
I've always hated the fiddliness of creating PowerPoints. And have you used like any of the like oh, there's Gamma, and there's one called
I
oh,
use
it's not.
I use Gamma once. I use Gamma once, but I'm so adverse to PowerPoints. Like I just used it just to try it out for free. But you know, I'm not a I don't love PowerPoints. I think they're kind of I don't know, it would be harsh, but I kind of feel like they're a waste of time, you know? If you can just give me bullet points, just give me bullet points. I'm done.
Yeah.
That's all I need. But some people love the PowerPoints. They absolutely love it. It's just corporate culture.
You know what I like, what I really like for documenting and, you know, kind of sh showing results. If you're going to show results in a kind of hard copy written way, is Quarto. That it's
Yeah.
the R and Python platform now that kind of took the place of R Markdown. And it does a beautiful job. And AI does a great job creating it. In that you can have code blocks, and you can have visuals, and you can have you know, the accordion, you know, expansion and collapse, and
Right.
it just puts together a very nice, you know, documentation file.
Mhm.
You know, if you're doing analysis and you want to document the code behind it, and, you
Right.
know, the conclude, you know, the insights that derive from it, and, you know, it really puts together a nice file. So
Right.
that's
Right.
something I've been doing more of.
How's your exploration been with the AI and data analysis the last few weeks?
You know, I continue to be incredibly impressed with Plotly Studio. You know,
Mm.
that you know, I've done some, you know, really complex stuff. The other day I had one where it was a time series decomposition, it was a logistic regression, it was, you know, a heat map with you know, with summary bars, and, you know, stuff that would be really difficult to do, you know, in any of the standard, you know, BI platforms, and it just chewed through them in minutes. You know,
Yeah.
there was a post I where I was working on an analysis of flight data from DC Airport, and I went from raw data. Actually, I had Desktop Commander and my AI my root code client actually pull the data from this package called AnyFlight, and it built the data set of actually real world data, assembled the whole thing for me, did a random sampling across 5 years, um, built the data set, put it in Supabase, then
Mm.
Supabase took my analysis plan, created a full schema, built the edge functions, did the row level security, built the API, and then um, put the whole thing together in a Parquet file that then went um, to Plotly Studio, and Plotly Studio just in minutes just banged out, you know, a beautiful report. And, you know, I just the whole thing start to finish 90 minutes, and it would have taken, I think, even somebody who is pretty pretty facile with, you know, Tableau or Power BI, it would have taken them 3 days to do that. It would have taken me 3 days to do it. And, you know, some of the stuff like the time series decomposition I don't even think was doable in those packages. And so,
Mm.
it's getting better and better. It's
Mm. I
it's
was
pretty amazing.
yeah, I was because I haven't worked in a large corporate for a while. Um I was wondering the other day, like how much of this do you think is already going on within a lot of these large organizations? Like how much because I was reflecting back like 10 years ago when I started using Power BI or 9 years ago, whatever it was. And I was like, I was like, this just democratizes, you know, great analysis. I truly felt it. And AI, like even ChatGPT, right? Like even in using Claude and Gemini. I mean, you can get insights. You know, they're not a dashboard or anything, but I just wonder how much of this is actually going on right now within businesses because it is sort of reverting back to that. Like it's another layer of democratization. Um, so I don't know. What do you think? Do you think this is quite
I want to talk
widespread?
to you about that. I want to talk to you about that because it's really interesting that I got some pushback on that this week when I posted that 90-minute workflow. A couple of people said, and I think it's a good comment that they said, okay, like there was one guy who said, like I get it, and this is cool, but he's like, you and Sam are kind of one-man armies, and you're not constrained by, organizationally what you can do. You're
Mm,
not constrained by resources in terms of, kind of using new tools. That you're not as worried about kind of security and data privacy and things like. And
mm,
yeah, I thought, okay, that's a fair argument. And I think
yeah,
I think that's true. And I think that a lot of the MCP stuff I'm doing, a lot of the the agent stuff, the stuff you're doing, I think we've been able to kind of be at the cutting edge because we're not constrained by those organizational things. And
yeah.
I thought it was a fair comment, and I wanted to ask you about it because, I think in medium to large organizations, you're probably going to be much more constrained in terms of the tools available.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt, and it's sometimes hard actually because I'm so far removed. Like I haven't worked in a large organization now for a decade,
Right.
and so I'm so far removed from that, and things have shifted so quickly. I'm I'm just not I'm not sure like how widespread it is. My feeling is it's probably pretty widespread. Like everyone knows about AI now. Like everyone knows about ChatGPT. Like, oh well, I mean, my brother, right? My brother works in a big organization. He's putting everything through ChatGPT, everything. For it,
Mhm.
but he's putting it into a PowerPoint to then go and present it to the next person and that kind of stuff. So, um, and my sister-in-law, she actually has a very successful data consulting firm. So they're doing a lot of Power BI stuff. Um, but I don't know. I just feel like it's so obviously like another level of democratization. I'm just not sure how widespread it is. Like, I mean, when Power BI first came out, right? Like there was a lot of kickback there too. Not as big as it is now because this is just bigger. But I used to hear lots of things of that nature, like no, the business person can't do this, they can't do that, they'll access our data, you can't the big one is that you can't share this online, you can't, those web embed links that you had, like, oh, it could go
Right.
it could go anywhere, it could such a huge risk. Like, I mean, it's just the same stuff, isn't it? It's just the same stuff. um there's just so many parties have so many, like everybody that you communicate to, particularly on LinkedIn. I mean, everyone's got their incentive, right, to have their view in a lot of cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the numbers underneath it all tell a bigger story, right? Like the underlying numbers. And it's sometimes when I really struggle reading stuff. Struggled to read stuff on LinkedIn in particular because I think um it's more obvious there than other places, is that the underlying numbers are telling you that everyone is going off and doing their own things. Like, 1 billion ChatGPT users. Gemini's usage has increased 50 times in the last, like, in the last 12 months. Vibe coding's exploding. Claude Code has increased Anthropic's revenue 5x in the last like 6 weeks. Like there's numbers telling you that like things are absolutely, changing. Behaviors are absolutely changing. So yes, there's always going to be these things thrown out, but like I think businesses will have to adjust around like what people are actually doing. Um, I got a message a couple of months ago. Um, it was from someone who did enterprise DNA's training a long time ago, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, like really early on. And they said they'd just come out of a meeting on Microsoft Fabric in their organization, and um, they couldn't believe how data work had seemed to revert back to what pre-Power BI days, like the centralized model, and no one else was allowed to touch it other than like IT in the data team. And I think I did an emoji, like putting my hands up like this. So like it just feels like it's sort of going sort of full circle. I don't know what you think. I mean, that's just those are just my strong views. Those are just whether they're strong or not. I don't know. They're just like how I see things. I like if I'm being honest, I really feel like things have, particularly in the space that we were in. I kind of feel a bit bummed. Like I just don't feel as excited about the messaging of or the what Power BI was. I don't feel like it's the same. I don't actually f feel that it has all the attributes that I once was like, wow, this is so disruptive. Like this is so cool. Like it just feels like it's gone back to how it was like with Tableau and these tools before Power BI came out. And I think it's kind of happening again, would be my feel. Like I feel like AI is going to come in and it's going to disrupt that. So that's kind of that's kind of my sort of take on it. I don't know. I feel a bit bummed about it, but I don't know. Do you sometimes feel that way?
Well, I think it took me a little longer to get to where you are, but I'm the same way. I can't get interested in Power BI anymore. It's like
Mhm.
I feel like I'm so far past what I even being good at Power BI. We're both quite good at Power BI, and I can do stuff now in a fraction of the time, and much higher complexity, and much higher kind of user control through AI. And I was kind of thinking back, in terms of the kind of the criticism that we're kind of operating at this cutting edge, kind of unconstrained.
Mm,
I mean, in some ways I think that's right, but I think the the world catches up pretty quickly. And I remember when we were first using, ChatGPT, people would say, well, your data is not private and they're training on your data and it's not going to be
yeah.
secure. And the only thing you're going to be able to use is, local models and, and it's like, look how quickly that resolved itself. That basically within a couple of months, everybody had, you know, fenced, team, you
Yep.
um, you know, team organizational, subscriptions, and you could opt out of training, and you could, there were all
Yep.
these things you could do that I think gave everybody comfort in terms of, security and privacy. And I feel that the analytic tools they're gonna get there too. They're not quite there yet. MCP still has, some issues in that regard, but it's still every month, if you look, they're improving that protocol. There's kind of more governance around it. There's more, OAuth and other stuff kind of coming into that protocol. And so, I really feel like, you know, as I say, the world catches up, and I think we're kind of riding at the front of the wave now, and being unconstrained. I think we're
Mm,
both kind of interested in, okay, how hard can you push this technology to do the things we want it to do. Um,
mm.
but you know, I- even
But
even Copilot, which has been kind of a disaster in a lot of ways, it's
mm,
getting better. It's now not no longer kind of mystery meat, of these mixed models. It's
mm,
GPT-5, which is its own kind of mystery meat because you don't know particularly which model it's running, but
Mm,
it's getting there. It's way better than it was. And yeah, I think it'll ultimately get to the point where, as you say, like the smarts of the models is not going to be the constraining factor.
mm, mm. I just hardly use Copilot, so I just can't have, I don't have any view. But like, I don't really understand why I need to use it if it's just GPT-5. I mean, I've got a ChatGPT, my full ChatGPT subscription, so do I really need to use it?
Right.
I don't know, like what benefit is it giving me above just using ChatGPT? I mean, I guess it's integrated into like your existing stack and all that kind of stuff, but I
And
don't
I think
know.
that's it, that it's built in, it's built into every, Teams and Excel and Power BI and,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but it's hard like I would say it's hard mentally to I mean you're able to do things like multiple times quicker. So it's very hard when you see that and you do that to then go back and do something
oh,
that
I
that
you
that
can't go
that
back.
is
It's
that is
so
five times
frustrating.
slower, it's five
Yeah.
times slower and less efficient. And you know, I think like what happens in these in most this is what happened when Power BI came along, right? Like it started very organically. It started very organic. Obviously, it was like a Microsoft tool, so it's like probably easier to get past the gatekeepers and stuff, like in a lot of organizations. But usually things just start changing within an organization from the ground up. They usually do from when I was in there. Um, and there's probably a lot of people in organizations just chucking stuff into these AI models to get them to get some sort of analysis, to get tables. I mean, ChatGPT is incredible at just like analysis that you would do in Excel historically. It's incredible. Like whipping up tables, whipping up like you know, um, any type of like tabular analysis, what if analysis, like all this crazy stuff. I mean, it does it in seconds. It's so transformational. So there's just no doubt that people are defaulting to that in some way, right? Like there's
Yeah.
just no doubt. There's no doubt. I just don't know. I don't know because I'm not sitting in these organizations anymore.
Well, I have to think that like anybody who codes at work is now
Mm.
kind of demanding Claude code at their desk.
They have to
Uh,
be. I mean, you you
yeah.
you're just you're just insane if you're coding normally now. Like if you're actually
Yeah.
writing code, I mean, there's been so much pushback for months on end, right? The amount of like posts and stuff that you used to see 3 to 6 months ago, this will never be a thing. Like, these things are, always coding badly, but just this, it's the speed at which you can do it, the speed. I mean, I even got kickback from my own developers that I work with, in my team. They hated it to begin with, but I said, but it just like, I mean, I just started doing more than them myself. So I was like, guys, it's not perfect. It's still not perfect, by the way. Like the code that these things pump out is very suboptimal in a lot of cases. Um, but it's still just way faster. It's way faster. You can iterate faster. It's a new way of working, but you can just deliver results far quicker. Um, and I think there's innovation going on even now, like around that, like sub agents and these other things. I mean, I'm not even utilizing these things, but I've got to find a way. I've got to find a way to start utilizing more of these latest innovations. But I'm getting such good results already, so it's hard to do it. It's hard to spend the time to do these other little things. But I'm going to. One of the things I was going to ask you, and I was going to test this. I haven't seen much of this online, but can Claude Code actually reach into an Excel spreadsheet and collect data from an Excel spreadsheet? Because it can definitely do it. It can definitely manipulate files on your computer, but can it actually manipulate spreadsheets?
I believe it can. I was just looking at this issue and basically you can I definitely know in the Claude desktop, you can now drop Excel files in and it will read an Excel file.
Right.
The interesting thing that I've been looking at is the ability in Python and R to basically build Excel formulas and then export that to an Excel file. So you can do a
Mm,
lot of your complex analysis in your MCP client or your chat agent, and then have it build the Excel file that that contains those formulas. And that's a really so you can basically have it if somebody gives you an Excel file, it can extract the formulas and the data, and then you
Mm,
can rework the formulas, and then you can export it back to a binary Excel file, which is pretty interesting.
yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, I've got to test that more. I do actually want to test that because that would be like another serious sort of evolution. Like, if you can just because in a lot of cases, like in a lot of so not like your big data, but small data. Let's just say like small to medium data. I mean, Excel can hold like 100,000 rows, right? So it covers a lot of. If you could
Right.
just connect into your Excel file with like that through Claude Code, God, that solves a lot of like use cases in businesses, doesn't it? You could just like have these agents running around, and and you could create sub agents that do sub things like check work and all this kind of stuff. Like, man, I've got to try it. I've got to try it. I'll try it and I'll report back.
Yeah, I was actually just researching that today. That's one of the things I had deep research run for me in terms of
Right.
the Python and R packages and the MCP servers that can do that sort of manipulation of Excel formulas in the chat space and in
Yeah.
the Cloud Code space. Um, but yeah, that's definitely something I'm going to be playing with in the next couple of weeks as well.
Yeah.
One thing that's really changed for me, I don't know if it has for you, but how I manage text has completely changed. That I do everything now in Markdown. That I haven't opened Word in weeks. Um, that I use Typora, which is a $15 like buy it once, Markdown editor, which is great. And then
Mm.
Claude and Gemini, both spit Markdown out perfectly, and then they ingest Markdown really well. And then Obsidian stores everything natively in Markdown. So I've got this, kind of perfect documented information flow that just stays entirely in Markdown now. And I wondered if you've kind of evolved in a similar way with, kind of how you're handling text.
Not in a huge way. Not in a huge way. I mean, I'm just not sending text around that much, honestly. Um, so I'm just not doing like if it was pre-AI, like I wouldn't have that many reasons to go to Word at the moment. So I
Mm.
haven't really. I mean, most of the text I'm doing is just in Teams. This is Microsoft Teams, just like talking to people in Microsoft Teams, but I'm usually just like copying and pasting stuff. So no, I haven't. I mean, yeah, no, I just haven't had as much experience doing that stuff. What sort of
One of the
text?
nice things, it really builds beautiful documentation for your repos.
Ah, right. Yeah, right. Yep. Yep. Well, I mean, I've been using I sit in Claude Code and I say, hey, can you please one of the things that I've been doing, so we have this voice app called Help Genie, right? I told you about it. And so it's really coming along. It's like really impressive now, like seriously impressive. And I'm gonna make it more impressive. I've been feeding it a lot of knowledge about our apps because what you can do is you can web embed the voice now into your website in your application.
Mm.
And so we're using it. I'm actually using it on a couple of my apps and websites as a bit of a tester. I'm feeding it a lot of like custom knowledge. But what I do is I sit in Claude Code. I get the repo. I get the entire code base of the app, connected up to Claude Code. I say, can you create six subagents and create six files for me about user flow, navigation, um, boom, 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 six different things. And then the subagents just go and search the code, come up with detailed documentation on like how it works, what the thing is to do, and then I load these up into Help Genie for the knowledge base, and then I've got this. voice AI that's trained on the on exactly how the application works, and it sits inside the website. So it's kind of like your website advisor sitting right next to a user. It's quite innovative. I reckon that's pretty sick. Um, so anyway,
Yeah,
that's
I haven't used any voice kind of coming back at me. That's something I've been curious about. I do everything now input by voice, but what you're
mm.
saying is you're now your website, your apps are outputting voice to you.
That's what so our strategy with Help Genie is we think that well, I've been big on voice AI for a long like I think it's going to be freaking massive, like absolutely huge. And it's there still is like very little application out there, but we feel like there's a real opportunity to bridge the digital and physical world in a lot of ways with voice AI. So um so instead of giving someone some web-based, like for example, instead of giving, there's lots of ways you can insert it, but instead of giving someone some web-based chatbot, which they usually hate using, you just give it a voice AI that's fully trained, completely
Yeah.
trained on everything in the app. And so if they get lost at any point, it's like one click, talk to the AI, talk to the AI about the app, learn about how to use the app, um, learn about strategies to make you work better in the app. And that's huge, right? But the bigger insight is like that's helpful. But the bigger insight is you get all of that insight directly to your chosen place. So we're setting up connections. We've already got email set up, but we're also going to send Teams messages, Slack messages, WhatsApp messages, Telegram messages of overview of the discussions. So you can in real time see what your customers are saying and what they need help with. So
Kind of like a notebook LM.
Kind of, but you
Workflow.
can customize the information that you gather. And so the idea is you'll be able to have specific genies for specific things. So you might have
Mm.
a sales genie, you might have a customer support genie, you might have a physical retail genie where a customer comes into your physical store, they scan a QR code and they've got like a shopping assistant with them as they walk around the store and they check out all your different goods and stuff. So I'm so big on this. I actually think it's my number one thing that I'm working on actually at the moment. I think it could be so huge, so huge. Because you're providing supply in a lot of cases. You're providing a supply into something that hasn't been able to be supplied before. Like think about it. You're extending capability, like communication capabilities, service capability that you could never supply before, and it's at a tenth the cost. It's less than that actually, much less than that. Think about the insights that businesses will be able to get out of this sort of new wave of tech. Like it's huge. It's absolutely huge.
I had a crazy experience with that the other day that we made a pretty big purchase for the house. And
Yeah.
I I submitted before I said, hey, um, in the Google deep research, and I said, I'm looking to buy X, I'm looking to buy this big thing at this model. What dealers service the DC area? And it went through and it basically it the amount of research it did was remarkable. It looked like in like a six-state area, surrounding, and it looked at every dealer of that particular thing and which one serviced my zip code. It looked up the Better Business Bureau records. It looked at the complaints. It looked at customer feedback on a bunch of different, Yelp and a bunch of different blogs. And it came back to me and it not only told me which place it thought I should buy from, it told me which salesperson to ask for.
Wow.
And I did. I called up the place it recommended and the guy was fantastic. I said, I'd like to speak to Jerry and um they put me through to him and the guy was great, and I was just thinking like, how would you have ever, kind of the amount of research I would have had to do to, kind of look through six states of dealers and who services my area and who's good and who's got complaints. And, it was incredible what it came back with. And it was such a good it was such a good buying experience, on a pretty big purchase. Um,
Mm,
and it was interesting because the guy said, "Well, how did you come to us?" And I said, "Honestly, it was AI research, And he's like, "That's interesting." He said, that's
yeah.
not something you hear often."
Well,
But I
what you
think
just
it's
described there, I think shows two huge things, huge like changes. One is how that just personifies how the internet has been completely rewired, like how you actually find things, how you actually find people. And it's not something that you can kind of like, for lack of a better word, game, right? Like you used to game it because you just like paid Google. Whoever paid Google the most would come up the top, and that's who those would usually be the winners, right? And it's harder to game. It's harder to game or to pay to win that game, right? Um, so that's fascinating. The other fascinating thing, I think, even more so, is that think how much power these like these guys are going to have from an AI like advertising perspective, is that they will be able to charge so much money to um, alter those results based on who is actually paying them at the end of the day, right? Like Google is going to monetize their AI. Like if
oh
people, if
no,
you
no doubt.
if you don't think they are, then you're crazy. Like they are absolutely going to start inserting ads, and you will be buying ads to be showing up in those sort of queries. This is just very, very early days. Everyone's getting used to this new way of working. Like there's absolutely no doubt. But think about how much they could charge for that. Like they could charge
Yeah.
obscene amounts of money, way more than they could charge for like a top search result in Google. So there is some tectonic shifts happening around exactly the themes that you just mentioned.
Oh, I remember years ago when I bought a car, there was a service I can't remember who it was, but you could basically order a like that kind of report. It was like you said, okay, I'm going to buy a Honda
Oh, no.
CRV in this area, and give me the report on kind of what the what the distribution of negotiated prices is, what
Mhm.
the service records of the different dealers was. And it cost like $50. And it was well worth doing because it put you in a great position to negotiate, price. But I think about that and it was like it was kind of the it was kind of the manual version of AI deep research, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's what
and
Gartner does at another level. It's just Gartner at
right,
another level, isn't it?
right.
Gartner's rating bonds and equities and technology. It's the same thing. Same thing. That's why their stock is getting crushed.
Well, the thing that was crazy about this too is it not only gave me all that information, it gave me tips on negotiating strategy. It said, here are the things they're going to try to, add on probably and sell you. Here are the
Yeah,
things that are worth paying extra for. Here are the things
yeah,
that are not. Yeah, it
totally.
was it was fantastic.
I don't know if you remember this post I did. I did it like 6 months ago when the models were getting way better. And I said, this is the age of transparency. This is the age of transparency because how are you going to charge obscene margins for things when people can like do a deep research and figure out how to do it 5 times less in like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that theme has changed at all. At all, if not, if anything, it's going to accelerate. I mean, the only people that seem to be getting away with obscene margins is cloud providers right now. The infrastructure providers. They're the ones who just like get away with absolute murder in terms of their margins.
But yeah, I mean, by all accounts, like, it's changing the way people buy cars. That
Yeah.
with it's kind of like you just kind of look up what you want, you do the research, you have it delivered to your house. There's no more
Yeah.
going haggling at the dealership. And
I think you're pretty rare. Honestly, I would say you're in the top 1 or 2%. But yes, you would say that that's going to increase. Yeah, that sort of usage.
yeah.
But Yeah, well, it's certainly a transition time, isn't it? It's transitioning from this one paradigm to this absolute new one, which is very, very, very different, very different. Because if you think about it, if you think about the transparency part, right? Companies made a lot of money because there was no transparency historically. Like a
Right.
lot, a lot. That's where all the margin was in a lot of cases, right?